What's up, everybody? If you're a micro quad pilot or one way or another part of the micro drone community, you probably know that there is one thing that this class doesn't have, which the 5-inch class has pretty much an abundance of, and that's a choice of HD cameras to record flight footage. There aren't a lot of cameras available that these tiny drones can carry that are capable of high quality HD footage recording, and that's why most of the time you see just DVR footage. But DVR footage has all the radio interference, all the noise, it's low quality, sometimes it has all the OSD stuff that you might not want, and less than ideal color and resolution. One of these very few options right now is this SQ11 HD camera, and that's what we're going to have a look at. In the box, there's the manual, the camera itself, mounting clips, and the video out charging cable. You can see why this is a popular option. It's super tiny and it fits on a 2.5 inch. Let's check the weight. Almost 19 grams. Now that's quite a bit considering the drone is under 50 grams. It's not a big deal though, because I'm gonna modify this camera and I'll explain what I'm gonna do. There are two caveats with this camera. First is the lens. It is terrible. It is so narrow, it's practically unusable for any kind of flying. Just check out this footage. Just see how narrow this is. This is also a good example to show you the second problem. You see how the camera steps through the exposure settings instead of smoothly transitioning from light to dark and back? Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about this. It's a cheap camera, it's only 10 bucks, and unless someone smart comes up with a custom firmware that fixes that, we're pretty much stuck with this. But it's still better than FPV footage full of noise and terrible colors and radio interference. So there's that. To take the camera apart, first you're gonna remove the sticker. There's a screw under it. You're gonna need a tiny Phillips screwdriver. Just undo that. The case just comes apart. Just like that. And you can see there's the LiPo, the tiny 1S LiPo there. Everything's kind of built around this metal frame, and we're gonna get rid of that because that's the heaviest part. Now there are two more screws that are holding this together. One in the corner here. And on the other side. Carefully remove the components. Be sure not to rip this cable because it connects the camera to the board. So this is the camera with the battery, the microphone. So first thing I'm gonna do is carefully peel away everything. I will keep the microphone because even though it's not the best quality, might as well have the audio. I'm gonna remove and get rid of this infrared LED array. You can just rip it off. Let's see how much the actual camera components weigh without the case. 5 grams, 5.5 grams. That's pretty good. So the plan is to remove this lens as carefully as possible and replace it with this higher field of view lens, which are removed from a car DVR, and hopefully we don't damage any of the components or the sensor, otherwise it's as good as garbage. I'm gonna start with the easiest part, removing the lens housing from the sensor, because I don't care if I damage the sensor, I just need to use the lens. As easy as that. Now I'm gonna remove the housing from our camera. Okay, looks like I didn't damage anything. It's hard to tell. I'm gonna need to do a little recording test. But yeah, it's really hard to get the lens off because it's so tiny and everything is so close together. It's really risky. You don't want to get your fingers in there, you don't want to get the knife in there. So what I did was cut the actual plastic further away from the board and then removed some of the remaining bits to make it safer to remove. So now I'm gonna do a little test before I glue the new lens in to make sure the camera still works. As you can see, the video is super blurry because the lens is actually designed and focused for a different kind of sensor, but that doesn't matter because we're gonna refocus that later. I'm just happy I didn't destroy the sensor taking it apart, and we can actually finish this build. I'm just gonna use generic CA super glue to glue the lens to the outside housing so that we can have it on permanently. Then I'm gonna remove the glue from the lens thread so I can screw the lens in or out to refocus it properly. After that, we can put some glue back on the lens thread so that we can keep the lens focused permanently. I'm just using a clothes bag to keep the lens tightly on the sensor. The CA glue is nasty, it gets everywhere, it glues your fingers together. I just want to avoid the mess. Comes off just like that. In order to set the focus properly, you need to rotate the lens, and obviously putting the SD card in, making a recording, checking it, going back and forth until you get the right focus is a really massive pain. What you can actually do is plug in the camera without an SD card, and it will show up in your computer as a webcam. You can use this as a webcam and basically focus it by looking at the picture on the computer. So the camera is connected in webcam mode. You can see the video is blurry. What I'm gonna do is twist the lens carefully until everything in the distance comes into focus. Just like so. You can already see just how much better the field of view is compared to the original lens. Now there are still some issues with the camera. Ignore this little timestamp in the corner, that's not going to show up in your videos. Jello, the terrible jello, right? That's going to show through in the footage, there's no escaping that. It's a super cheap camera, but yeah, check out that light. You see how slowly it adapts to the light and steps through? Again, that's not going to go away, we're stuck with that, but that's the best we've got. So what I'm going to do is put a dab of glue on the thread to lock that focus in permanently. I'll cover the camera to protect the electronics. We'll mount it on this little tiny micro quad and we'll fly it around and see how it looks. Now what I ended up doing is securing everything together with double sticky foam tape and putting this big block of foam on top of the lens to protect it. Now hopefully this will be enough because anything else will just add too much unnecessary weight. Now I never really designed the quad to carry a camera. It doesn't really have space for it, but if I slide the battery back far enough, I can sort of fit it on the front. It even makes it look like a tiny alien or some other kind of common 5-inch. It's not exactly the strongest construction, it's all held by rubber bands, so I'm afraid this is not gonna really stand in a crash, but for the purposes of testing, that's good enough. I'm gonna go to the park and see if it flies. So I'm here in the park, the video and the audio is coming through the SQ11. It's been raining, it's really cold and windy, so my flying is gonna be terrible, but let's give it a go.